I explored a world where life was neither biological or synthetic. I spent roughly a week surveying different parts of the planet and its rich ecosystem. My expedition was aimed at gathering research samples and observing the ecosystem up close. Hamasine is a planet 8% smaller than Earth, orbiting a similar star to our own back home and much closer to it. This made most of the planet a scorching desert. Hamasine's axial tilt is 90 degrees. This means that the temperature across the planet is uniform, from poles to the equator. Temperatures vary between 475 and 560 degrees Celsius, similar to the lows on Venus. The suit I wore was quite high-tech, but even so, I couldn't spend more than 14 minutes on the ground before returning to my ship. How life can not just exist here, but thrive has large implications on what we think life even is. The planet is mostly desert, has vast barren rocky fields and one enormous ocean. However, it was essentially more salt than water. Think about this, Earth's oceans have a salinity of 3.5% on average. The unalive sea between Israel and Jordan is the saltiest with 34%. This ocean, however, was 61% salt. The water is essentially just there to move the salt around. How it is not fully absorbed into the salt is something I didn't manage to figure out. This had significant implications for the planet's environment and the life that inhabited it. Also, if you are wondering how come water doesn't evaporate in this heat, you'll understand that later. The rest of the planet is either fine sand desert or vast fields of barren rock. Now let's move on to the local biosystem. We usually think of life as being either biological or synthetic. It can be either the result of evolution, stemming from a hypothetical primordial soup as abiogenesis happens. It then slowly but efficiently adapts to its ecosystem and specific biome. That's why there are creatures living at the bottom of the ocean, in caves and on mountains. Synthetic life, on the other hand, is created, either by advanced biological life or by other synthetic life too. The Verne Observatory saw many instances of sentient AI on other worlds, not just back home on Earth. As it would appear, there is something beyond these two. Yes, it's still life. However, the building blocks are not meat, nor iron, but a highly stable form of the noble gas we know as xenon. Okay, here's the basic science behind it. Carbon is a great element for building blocks because it is very stable. This means you can build a bunch of different types of life forms on top of it. Same story with silicon. Now, if you want to go more exotic, you can, in theory, build life based on sulfur or nitrogen. I say in theory, because their atomic bonds break way too easily and fast. Life effectively doesn't even get a chance to start evolving in any serious manner. Okay, let's push it even further. Noble gases. It has long been hypothesized that life could evolve based on rare noble gases like xenon. If only somehow, it would be stable. Well, it appears to have been extremely stable on Hamasina for quite a while now. This has many major implications for life here. Every single creature I encountered was bioluminescent. This seems to result as a byproduct of the sheer amount of radiation that bombards the planet's surface. The creatures all use it as a primary means of not only interspecies communication, but intraspecies as well. You heard that right, most species here can communicate basic information to each other. Quite a large number of the creatures I have encountered are also fractal. They effectively perpetually move into themselves. It's like they are constantly morphing, but they maintain a relatively constant shape. This allowed them to absorb and trap moisture from the planet's rare rainfall, and also to reflect and radiate heat more efficiently. It is also one of the reasons for their bioluminescence. Most species here can convert heat into light and dissipate it as a means to maintain a colder body temperature. As you have probably realized by now, this is also one of the reasons why everything alive here is very brightly colored. Black has a nasty tendency to trap heat, whereas white does the opposite. However, some life forms here have evolved into having shapes that we might be familiar with. Legs, claws, beaks, etc. I guess as diverse as life is, Mother Nature also has a tendency to not reinvent the wheel. Smaller predators tend to be quicker and aerodynamic, larger ones to rely on mass and strength. This world lacks vegetation in a true sense. However, there are some short and stubby algae-like specimens here and there. Remember the mostly salt-based ocean? Well, no surprise, it also harbors life. The drone I had managed to send took a picture of one specimen it encountered. It only recorded for 4 hours before its circuits fried under the pressure and heat. It is also very difficult to see far under the water because, well, light doesn't really pass through solid salt. As I kept on exploring, I found a relatively recently unalived creature. It didn't have separate organs in the way we find on Earth. It only appeared to have one very large and complex organ. I imagine it did everything from metabolizing, to circulation, to brain function. Decomposition was also very different, as the specimen seemed to slowly evaporate. This could probably be due to its xenon gas-based biology. Now here is something I absolutely have no answer for. We have catalogued thousands of other alien worlds, and one rule seems to follow: the more hostile the environment, the less chance for complex life to appear. Bacteria and the like are great at surviving anywhere. Animals and plants are a different story. Conditions have to be much more specific. Hemicina does not only seem to be an exception, but a singular case. Lab results show us that the xenon-based element that life exists on here is very stable. Much too stable to be a result of nature. In fact, it seems to not only exist in its local flora and fauna. This element is present even in the water and the air. This appears to be the reason why not only complex life is possible, but liquid water as well. At least for me, this world has the potential to be the best proof of a very ancient abiogenesis experiment. More studies are required. For the Verne Observatory, this was researcher Kumiko Agarwal.